GM. Okay, perfect. Wow, I didn't expect that many people here, so I'm a bit shocked. But thanks for coming for this little talk. We want to talk today a bit about the Web3 social and what our team at Aave and Lens are doing at the moment. So it's going to be very fascinating. And just to get some ideas, how many of you are using social media actively? Perfect. How many of you are using decentralized social media? Okay, we're still early, but it's still like a lot of hands, so I'm pretty proud of you. When we've been looking into social media today, we've seen a lot of kind of like challenges at the moment, what we have. Obviously, similar challenges that we have in decentralization, kind of like centralization, and why we are using decentralization as a method to solve these issues. And just to give a few examples, what we have been looking into is that today in social media, the pattern and the dynamics are quite mounted towards idea where we as the users are actively using these platforms for basically sharing our opinions, our thoughts, interacting with our peers and friends, and at the same time, we're essentially building the big networks that has become social media platforms today. So essentially, we, the users, are kind of like the product at the moment. And then we're essentially giving out a lot of data to centralized social media platforms. And in return, we're buying services or are selling our attention without getting any compensation at the moment. And also, we have an issue of like centralized social media selling your data. And there is not much you can actually do about it because all your friends and your peers are in these social media platforms, so it's very hard to actually do a digital exit and leave the platform. And that's the issue of the lack of portability. You create an audience in one particular platform, and you can't take it away to another platform, or if something new has been created for you. And it's a big issue. It's not only about we're not only talking about, let's say, something like Twitter or posting pictures between your friends, but it boils down to the right of having the accessibility for your voice. So as we know today, for example, that we can share our opinions in real life with our peers online, but once you kind of like lose that access to share their opinions, that's where the bigger problems are coming towards. And today, where we are living in a society where we have different opinions. So, for example, today we are here because we believe in decentralization. We believe that what we created with the internet actually. Let me come back on that slide just a moment. Oh, I don't know how this works. Anyways, perfect. So let's look into that in a moment. So with the decentralization, for example, we believe that what we created with the internet is quite amazing. So internet in general connects people all over the world to share opinions and essentially creates a forum where you can find knowledge. So for example, today you necessarily don't need to go to a school to learn things that you want to learn. You can find resources online. You can find opinions across the world with the internet. So internet by itself has created a lot of opportunities and democratization with knowledge. But we're here today, for example, because we believe that the way we created the internet in a centralized way, it created a lot of efficiencies, but at the same time, it centralized a lot of resources and also the control to single entities that are basically becoming quite big at the moment. So what we are trying to achieve as well, not only what we did with decentralized finance, with the Aave protocol, with the Lens protocol, we're trying to give that power back to the users and change the dynamics a bit more. So whereas you are the users and the product in decentralized social media networks and platforms, With decentralized social media and what we're trying to do with the Lens protocol, we want to get that power to you as the users and changing the dynamics in a way where these applications, algorithms, they actually are here to serve you. And you as a user, you can choose what kind of algorithms you want to use and what are servicing for you. But that's just like a secondary. I think the main purpose of decentralization is that it gives you the freedom of choice. And because you have the choice, because you have the ability to vote with your feet and change the provider, change the DeFi applications you're using, and giving you the choice to select what providers, applications, experiences, that changes the dynamics completely. So the applications, they need to actually build, and developers build those applications that are actually in line with your principles. And I think in terms of like Web1 social, that was the moment where we could actually broadcast a lot of information globally. So, for example, I was born and raised in Finland, where a lot of open source technology was thriving. Linus Torvalds created the Linux operating system, Git, which is basically used by every developer in the planet. And I kind of like a belief of having information and access into information. And this is how I personally learned about software development, any other topic and area that I was interested in. Most of the thing I learned was from internet. And with Web2 social, I was able to actually interact and share my ideas across the internet to other people in a way where I didn't need to actually have much of developer skills. I could essentially join a platform and actually create content. And that's very efficient because it means that you can scale this platform across globally to anyone who has the access to internet. Now, with the Web3 social and what we are trying to achieve with decentralization, we want to take the idea and reconstruct how the internet is built today. We did that with payment networks and finance, and now we're trying to achieve the same with the social media and publishing. And that's about actually bringing the ownership to you. And it's the bigger thesis in Web3 that the actual users of these networks should have the ability to decide how the networks are created, but also have this kind of like a self-sovereignty over your assets on your social presence and your social networks. And having that kind of like ability to decide how you interact with your users without anyone coming in between for you. So the way we create impact is in twofold ways. So obviously we build a protocol, and what it means is that we first and foremost we wanted to re-architecture the way social media base layer works today. So we wanted to create a set of tools for developers to build social media applications in a way where they can actually focus on the experience, they can focus on building better applications, and redefining what social media is today. I think the way we build social media necessarily today isn't the way we want it to be. So having a lot of followers, chasing likes, for example, or getting traction isn't necessarily the way we want to interact. Maybe there's a way of building social media where we focus on privacy, or we focus on smaller, more impactful networks, and maybe even more niche social media networks. The base layer, what we wanted to achieve is essentially to create a composable layer where any developer can actually come any part of the world, from Argentina, India, Europe, and actually build those applications. And you don't need to focus on the user acquisition that much because you're actually using a network that already has users. So that's the bigger kind of like a value proposition. When you're building together, you're all sharing the user base, and you can decide how do you curate what kind of a content as an application builder. But also, we're empowering creators quite a lot because the creators can choose, as they own their own social graphs, where they want to broadcast their content. Not just where they want to broadcast their content, but also they can signal what kind of algorithms they prefer to use, and they have the freedom and opportunity to choose. So for example, today, if you don't like the algorithm that is, for example, used in Twitter or in TikTok, I personally love the TikTok algorithm. It finds the most funniest shit on the planet. But in terms of like Twitter, you don't really have a choice. You can't really go and say, I want to use this particular algorithm because maybe it finds more content for you that is more interesting. Maybe you learn more by changing the algorithm. But the issue is that there might be other competitive factors for, let's say, a bigger social media platform to keep you one particular algorithm. Maybe it creates more revenue for the business and so forth. So it's essentially about giving the freedom. The infrastructure that we built is smart contract based. So we built a protocol where essentially we're using NFTs in terms of reflecting the ownership that you have or a relationship. So for example, each and every single profile is an NFT, meaning that you can store it in a cold storage or you can transfer it. It can be your social presence, but it can also be your brand that you created. Every single relationship is also recognized as an NFT. And what that means is that whenever you follow other profiles, you're minting follow NFTs. And those follow NFTs will always reflect the latest content that the users are publishing within the protocol. So for example, if I have a picture of a dog and I repost a picture of a cat, essentially those follow NFTs, if you go and look into OpenSea or you go into a wallet and look at that NFT, it reflects that picture of a cat, essentially. So between the profile NFTs and the follow NFTs, we created a protocol-level, censorship-resistant messaging, kind of like a channel between the user and the audience. But also, there's pretty much like a very simple, typical social media interaction, such as publishing content by posting, commenting, and also mirroring. And essentially, mirroring means that you can amplify the content that you like and share it with your own audience. And actually, as a creator of the content, you can also set mirroring fees. So for example, if you mirror content to another audience, your own audience essentially, what happens is that you can actually get paid if someone collects that content as an NFTs. And the way it works is that all the content that is posted are automatically NFTs based on the follow NFTs, but also you can collect them as mutable copies. So for example, if I like that picture of a cat, I can actually take that picture of a cat and mint out of it and collect it as an immutable NFT. And the creator can actually set also different kinds of monetizations. For example, you can collect a 5 Matic fee or any kind of like an asset and collect a fee out of the collections, and maybe you can even donate that to, let's say, the ETHLatam crew to sponsor the event a bit more next year, for example. So it creates a lot of interesting monetization dynamics, and these are just examples what you can build, what we built it into the protocol, and you can even expand that ecosystem. What we're thinking is that we are creating kind of like a direct-to-audience channel. So you as a creator, you don't need a actually application in between you and your audience because you have the direct relationships. And we want to change the way of the applications and algorithms that they actually are finding the ways to serve your audience in the best way, depending on your content type, what's your content type, and what kind of audience you have. And of course, like one of the things we wanted to elevate quite a lot is the curator aspect. So what we see quite a lot is that creators are getting empowered to quite some extent compared to the curators. And curator is also a creator class, and everyone is kind of like a curator. So some of us are making Spotify playlists, lists of people to follow in Twitter, or just reading recommendation, and that's curation. And curation is one of those things that takes most of the time as well, but it's undervalued in terms of the like compensation and the benefit. And the mirroring is one example of how you can actually elevate the curation and amplification of the content. But because it's an open protocol, anyone can create various kind of models into the protocol to elevate further the curators, the content creators, or the audience as well. One fascinating part is that what we've seen for the past year and a half or 2 years is the rise of the NFTs. NFTs isn't only kind of like a way to join maybe a community that are excited about a particular NFT project, but it's actually a way to verify ownership or creation of a particular content. And what we noticed with the NFT ecosystem is that it actually creates an interesting asset class where you have content as an asset. So for example, when we are buying art, that art is a piece of content and an asset class. If you have NFTs, that's also an asset class. And it's very well demonstrated in terms of art, digital art, for example. But I think the same kind of like methods could be used to expand into content like text-based content, more into audio, and we have seen more music NFT projects out there. And of course, the fascinating part for us, for the Lens team, is that how we build the protocol. So it's an open source protocol. Anyone can experiment with it, fork it, recreate something new, or contribute directly into the protocol with specific modules. But so far, we have had got a lot of interesting and exciting response in terms of what we have been doing and in terms of the impact. So there's definitely interest at the moment in decentralized social media. And I think I would love to map the space a bit in a similar way where we have the blockchain layer and we have a protocol layer where the Lens protocol is living. On the protocol layer, we also have various different other interesting protocols, smart contract-based tooling. We have POAP. We have Proof of Humanity, for example, is an interesting project. Both of them let's give a small clap for the Argentinian-based projects. So POAP, Proof of Humanity. So these are protocol smart contract-based tools that you can actually build and interact with the Lens protocol, because everything is pretty much composable. So once they're in the same network, you can do interesting logic there. The middle layer is about more of what kind of content you can curate for the applications, how do you index the data. We have the graph, subgraph for the Lens protocol. There's the Lens API that has been bootstrapped, and some additional tools as well. And then we have here the experience layer. So this is where a lot of focus has been put into by the community of actually using the protocol, using the middleware, and building different kinds of experiences. And then we, of course, have the audiences, depending on what kind of audiences we're looking at. And one interesting part is that we've seen a lot of DAOs creating Lens profiles at the moment. And it's quite fascinating because you can create a profile to have this kind of like a permissionless way to distribute news about a project. For example, if you have a project that is creating a smart contract-based proposal to a DAO, part of the smart contract payload could be, for example, that you post a changelog into the Lens protocol under the protocol's own Lens profile. But some of the examples we've built within our team couple of examples. We have the Lens friends where you can actually find other profiles and connect with them. There is a Lenser which was built in 2 weeks in a LF hackathon that we hosted together with the ETH Global team. Essentially, just a basic front end to access the Lens protocol. We've seen also LensTube, which was built by the brother of the Yogi who built the Lenser, and it's his little brother. Both are living in India. And then we have a Tea Party, which is more about curating the content and using soulbound tokens to reward the users. A lot of the things that has been built on top of the Lens protocol are recreating the current social media applications by the developers. And it's fascinating to see kind of like how you have this composability when you go to one application, then to another, and you necessarily don't need to log in, and you have the same portability there. Orb is one other interesting project where they're recreating kind of like a way to find talent and educate more talent into the Web3. And this is something very fascinating, especially that more and more talent is coming into the Web3 space, and there's so much to learn. So you basically can create a profile, learn different courses, and find also job openings as well. We have one community member that is that was building one application per day. This just shows the excitement of what we have on the community building. And of course, our team itself is focusing now on working on the middle layer. So one of the fascinating points about the protocol is that we have a gasless relayer. We call it the dispatcher. And the idea is that it pays the cost for the front ends to actually interact with the blockchain. So you don't essentially need to pay gas for posting. Now we're working with a couple of integrations. So we are working with the integration of Proof of Humanity, POAP, ENS, Sybil.org, and creating kind of like a middleware infrastructure where we increase the quality of the social graph. Just examples, different modules. Token-gated following is one of them. You can follow some particular profile if you have particular POAP from an event, for example. So because these modules are smart contract based, essentially they can be any kind of a logic on chain interactions and creating very fascinating use cases. And all these auctions, there's the all these modules here are actually community built. So there's dozens of modules built by the Lens community. And I think to compare a bit, I think the Lens community has had this kind of like a loot event that I like to compare with, where we built something very basic and left a lot of opportunities for the developers to come and solve and build them. And of course, a lot of whitelistings has happened by actually looking at the Web3 on-chain data. So for example, if you had a POAP or you're part of some particular community or certain NFT, you have been allowed listed to try the Lens protocol as it's still beta. So we have taken a bit more community approach on how we increase the social graph, and we want to solve many of these challenges we have together with the community. And also, if you have a website or a blog or anything online, you can also add the follow on Lens button, especially if you have a Lens profile. And for us, most important thing, we're focusing on actually making the usability more easier for the users. So we had the dispatcher, so we want to increase delegation. So for example, that you can delegate certain functions like following and posting to a dispatcher, so you don't need to sign the transactions by yourself, making it essentially easy for the users, new users that are coming into this space. And we're focusing quite a lot of creating like an open space for the algorithms to come and essentially build new algorithms for the users to choose what to use. Just quick graph on the numbers that we have. Maybe one of the interesting graphs here is that we have made over $200,000 worth of revenue directly to the users by users collecting posts or mirroring those posts, which is quite fascinating. So each profile is earning roughly $4.5 per user. And I love this kind of like a visualization of the social graph. So this was day one, almost 2 months ago. So we had on day one 2,000 profiles that were based on a open letter that the users were following, and 7,000 follow NFTs. 3 days later, we see the social graph kind of like increasing, and there's different kinds of parts there that are forming. Here we had a couple of additional whitelistings into the protocol with the Puli NFT, and you see the graph growing further. And this is 30 days later. We listed the developer DAO, Boys Club, Gitcoin contributors, a bunch of different POAP holders, the Avocado team, SheFi, Rabbit Hole, basically completely going towards a path of Web3 onboarding. And that's almost 2 months later, so 43,000 profiles. We're now over 50,000 profiles at the moment. And you can see like this hairball growing in terms of the social graph, and over 500,000 follows at the moment. And essentially, it's an open protocol, it's open source. Any one of you, if you're a developer, you can build interesting applications on top of the protocol, but you also can actually build new modules. If you have something interesting to build, ideas in mind, you can go to ideas.lens.xyz and help with us and build together. This is a protocol that is public good. It's basically for yours to build, and we want to build together with the community. So if you don't have a Lens profile at the moment, if you scan this QR code, fill the form, and you'll be allowed listed to test the Lens protocol and give your feedback, collaborate with our team, and participate and contribute. It's an open protocol, and we're super excited to get feedback and improve, and especially solve different kinds of challenges that we have in social media space today with decentralization. Thank you, everyone. It's super excited to be here. And that's it.